It looks like our old friends from the ACC are very seriously considering changing the future of college football as we know it. Stick with me here because this is actually important. It could be something that the SEC and the Big Ten do in the future. The ACC, which for a long time has essentially just got one team into the college football playoff, has really been petrified with what almost happened to Southern Methodist this year, which is that they lost in the conference championship game. And they had to hold on to get in. Obviously, as you know, the college football playoff champions from 5 leagues get in. The Big Ten, the SEC, ACC, Big 12, and then a group of 5. The top champion from there goes in. Obviously, Clemson snuck up and upset SMU, which was not shocking to some of us. But then that put SMU on the precipice. They very nearly got in and then got summarily dismissed by Penn State. In a game where they just played awful, SMU. But then this week, according to reporting from ESPN, Andrea Adelson over at ESPN, the ACC is seriously considering giving its regular season champion a bye. In other words, if you win the regular season of the ACC, you go directly to the college football playoff. I'm not sure how they're going to pull that part off. But the so-called championship part of that, the championship game after that would be the 2 and 3 seed in theory. Here's the direct quote from Jim Phillips, who is the new commissioner of the ACC, who I have sympathy for because Jim Phillips is in a very challenging situation with that league. What he inherited from the presidents of that league from a while ago when they demanded an ACC cable network, huge mistake, by the way. So the ACC has really been hamstrung for some time now. But here's what Jim Phillips had to say to ESPN, if I'm not mistaken, is ESPN. He says, well, I know it's ESPN wrote it. I know Andrea wrote it. She said that she quotes him as saying, the conference championship games are important as long as we make them important, right? Do you play 2 versus 3? Talking about the number 2 in the conference and number 3. Do you play 2 versus 3? You go through the regular season. Whoever wins the regular season, just park them aside, and then you play a second-place team versus a third-place team in your championship game. So you'd have the regular season champion, and then you'd have a conference tournament or postseason champion. He goes on to say, that's one option, depending on how you treat the conference champions or that the championship game if you want it to be different. He said, I've alluded to that in some of our every other week athletic director calls. And these are some of the things moving forward. We want to have a recap of the regular season. We want to have a recap of the regular season, postseason. What do we think moving forward? There's several issues here, okay? There's a slew of issues, actually, and I'll go through them right now. Some of them are, like, some of the issues make me think there's no way that this happens, okay? But at the same time, if you're the ACC and you've experienced what you just did with SMU, and to some degree, if you're, the Big Ten, and the SEC in the future, do you really want, what happened to Georgia in 2023 to happen to, whoever's next? Someone gets, not into the playoff because your best team did not win the tournament, did not win the championship game. Excuse me. Refresher real quick, as you may know, you may not know. My background is I played basketball and tennis in college, and in both those scenarios, and more specifically in basketball, you're not the conference champion unless you win the tournament. Okay, so you got to win the conference tournament. That gets you the automatic bid. And so the notion that the regular season champion would go is something that the Big Ten did in basketball for a long time, and then they made a tournament. And the Ivy League did for a long time, and then they went to a tournament. And for those of us who have lived in basketball world, the tournament play is everything. And so you're getting ready for the tournament. And frankly, that's what college football has become. You have a 4-game or a 3-game tournament. You have to play well at the end of the season. And, Georgia didn't. Notre Dame has. Notre Dame's playing in the national championship game. I don't know what the result is. They're going to play in about an hour. And so that's what you got. That's the difference. What the ACC is trying to do here is somewhat game the system. Let me talk about a couple of things here, including broadcasting, as well as what the SEC and the Big Ten are up to. Make sure that you're checking out our buddies over at MGM. So BetMGM has a great offer for you today. I've talked about this a lot. use the promo code MEGABET, MEGABET. You get a chance to win up to $1,500, y'all, in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. The link is right down below. Let's play responsibly, okay? Let's be smart about, let's play responsibly. Well, there's going to be a lot of data coming out about, win totals and national championship, all that stuff's going to be coming out here in the very near future about all those things. You're going to check out BetMGM for all of that. And so a couple things about the future of the college football playoff. First of all, in 2020, the 25-26 college football playoff, I'm not reporting this, but I'm just telling you, there's not going to be any changes. So the reason why there's not going to be changes is all of the other schools, all the other conferences besides the SEC and Big Ten have to agree to them. Okay. And, one conference can veto it, and they will. They will. The ACC, the Big 12, and the Group of Five one of them will say, we are not comfortable with our champion not getting an automatic bye if they are one of the top four. Well, two of those three will get an automatic bye. Clemson did not, but the other two did, which is ridiculous. But there's only one season of that left in the contract. So as you move forward for the 26 and 27 season, there's a lot that's not yet been determined on that front. Okay, what do I mean by that? The Southeastern Conference as well as the Big Ten are both lobbying for and likely will get, not certainly will get, 2 automatic qualifiers that go into the college football playoff. And if it's a 14 team or a 12 team, that's what's going to happen. I'm just going to tell you right now, the Big Ten and the SEC control the future of this thing, and they can take their ball and go home. So what the ACC is trying to do here is say, we want to make sure that if we're on the periphery of this thing, like if the SEC is starting to get 2 teams, the Big Ten is going to guarantee 2 teams. If there's a 12-team playoff and everybody's starting to get guarantees, we want our champion to not necessarily we don't want our best team to get knocked out if they're not the champion. And that almost happened in the ACC this year. I would contend to you that Clemson was the best team in the ACC. However, you could certainly make the argument that it was SMU. I would say if it were SMU, they would have beaten Clemson, but whatever. So, what Phillips is talking about here is the deconstruction of championship weekend. The SEC, the Big Ten, the ACC, the Big 12, they all have rights packages that they have sold. In the case of the SEC and the ACC through 2034 and 2036, okay, those packages are not just going to go away, and the conference championships are included in that. And if you did not catch it, Georgia Texas drew a massive number. It was the most watched game in college football this year. The SEC is not going to do away with the conference championship. The ACC is not going to do away with the conference championship. And I am hesitant to believe that that Disney will permit the Southeastern Conference not to have its so-called best teams in that weekend. I'm not as sure that, and I'm pretty certain Fox will not allow that with the Big Ten, but Fox only has control of the Big Ten for about the next 5 or 6 years. I'm pretty certain that will never happen with the SEC, Disney, Fox, and the Big Ten. With the ACC, maybe, but I really doubt it. And the reason why is if you're Disney and you're saying to the ACC, look, we will start putting your game on at noon, your championship game. If you give us 2 versus 3, if you give us Miami versus SMU rather than SMU versus Clemson. Excuse me. If you give me Clemson, Miami versus SMU, Clemson, we're going to start sticking your game at noon, or we're going to put it on Friday night. We will bury your game. We dictate to you when these games are played. We will tell you when it's played. We'll start it at 10 o'clock in the morning. Okay? There's things that these rights holders can do, but it would never get to that point. I think it is inventive if Disney wants to do it that way. They're the rights holder. Same thing with News Corporation. Whoever owns the rights, Netflix in the case of these NFL football games, they're the rights holders. But they are also partners of these companies, okay? Well, excuse me, of these conferences, the SEC and Disney could not possibly be closer aligned. I mean, I'm just telling you, they could not be closer aligned. They are partners in a way that, I mean, that ESPN and the NFL are. Those two properties, the NBA too, for sure. But the most valuable three properties that Disney has, probably in all of its broadcasts, not just ESPN, almost all of its broadcasts, its three most powerful properties are, in order, the NFL, and then a tie between the NBA and the SEC. The NBA may be bigger than the SEC on the grand scheme of things because you got the finals and you got a lot of inventory. But the SEC fills up a lot of dates. They have a cable channel with them. I would almost argue that the SEC is more important to the SEC than to ESPN and Disney than the NBA, but it's close. Nothing's close to those guys. And there's, I mean, the Major League Baseball. The point is that the ACC is not close to that. The ACC needs Disney. The ACC is shackled to Disney. The ACC is existing as in its current form because of its agreement with Disney, or it would be splintered. And you'd see North Carolina in the Big Ten or the SEC. You would see, Virginia in the Big Ten or the SEC. You'd see Miami in the Big Ten or the SEC, and you'd probably see Clemson in the Big Ten or the SEC. That would happen. And you'd probably see Boston College and whatever, So, and Georgia Tech, I don't know. But it wouldn't be in the SEC. But that's just the thing here is the ACC is having to figure out, how do we do this right now? We are in a rock and a hard place, and we actually don't know where the rock is located. We just know we're in a hard place, and we're getting crushed. We cannot move forward with one person in a 12-team playoff. We cannot move forward with two teams in a 14-game playoff. There's so much that the ACC's got a problem with right now. It certainly could become the Big Ten and SEC Invitational. I mean, you already saw 6 of the 12 were SEC Big Ten. So this is really what the ACC is concerned about. And the question is, will the other conferences follow foot? Will they do the same thing in the Big 12? Will the Mountain West or, the American, will they do that? Will they say, in the case of the American and the Mountain West and the Group of 5 schools, they very well could. They could say, Boise's our champion. They are not playing in the championship game, period. They are our champion, and that's it. So we have entered into yet another new phase of college football right now because of what the ACC is floating out there. It's a risky take. It's a risky move. But so was the Southeastern Conference Championship in 1992. And Roy Kramer was correct in doing that. It worked out for Alabama and the Gators, and not so much for the Gators, but it worked out for the league and has been a huge moneymaker. The Southeastern Conference Championship is worth at least $50 million. I would say that's a very low number, to be honest with you. I think it's worth, I would say, more than that for the SEC. I would say it's worth more than that for sure. I wouldn't want to guess the number. I don't think, I don't know if it's worth $100 million, but it's worth scores more than probably any other championship game because of sponsorship rights holders, ticket sales. I mean, the SEC has been doing it for a long time. When I've met off the record with the SEC, they have been pretty clear about how important the championship game is for them. And not just football, by the way, but other sports too. But definitely football is by far the king of all of that. And I do wonder where this is going to go. I don't know. I think that college football very specifically is hitting a lot of walls, a lot of forks in the road at the same time. And no one in DC wants to get anything done. The NCAA keeps losing in court. The schools, which are the NCAA, find it convenient to fight the NCAA when they want to, and belittle the NCAA when they want to do that. I mean, so the schools are just as much the problem here as anyone else. The leagues control everything. And of course, the leagues are the NCAA too. So it's all a mismatched mess that we've gotten ourselves into. But football has been driving the boat for probably 20 years, if not longer, probably 30 years. And I am curious to see what the ACC does here on this front. I don't know if this is the worst idea I've ever seen in my entire life. I don't know if it's the greatest idea either. And we're just going to have to see what happens as the chips fall. But the ACC is not going to do anything without Disney giving them permission first behind the scenes. Thanks for watching.